Hello and welcome to Quantum Harmony Home Summit, Season 12. I'm Helena Riley and I'll be your host. Today I have one of my favorite guests, Masami Covey, who is a very welcome Masami. Masami is a very gifted medical intuitive, and she's been practicing functional medicine for many, many years. She's a functional nutritional therapist and an internationally recognized speaker. She reveals the root causes of imbalance using intuitive insights and a whole person approach. Now, I've been very impressed with her work and her intuition and her research. So I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to you today, Masami.
Thank you so much. I always look forward to connecting with you. And today is no exception. So thank you.
Thank you. And we're very excited because we are uncovering what is stopping prosperity from occurring, what is preventing it, and how to open the doorways to prosperity. And I know today that we are going to focus on quantum prosperity in terms of the physical body and nutrition and hormone balance. And this is really key because when we don't address the physical body, our life goes spins out of balance really quickly. And many of the seekers, spiritual seekers, etc., choose to focus on the etheric. So let's talk today about grounding and hormones and how that impacts the trajectory of our prosperity.
Yes, so it's a large piece. Yeah, right. That's a big picture start. But when it comes to prosperity, and for those of you that know about my work, is that I'm interested in how do we create prosperity on this earthly realm as a biological, physiological being. So that's where I get interested in diving into the quantum fields within us, because the unified quantum fields are not always outside of us. There's outside of us, but there's an inside of us. We are part of this whole big picture. And so last time you and I spoke, we actually addressed the lymphatic system. And I don't know, you remember the cisterna chyli, it sits between third chakra and fourth chakra, and it's what feeds into the heart center. That cisterna chyli of the biggest lymph nodes, that has to be cleared in order for you to really experience flow and prosperity. But I thought maybe we can go one step further now into the cellular level. So we're going a lot deeper into the quantum fields, because quantum fields aren't something that is larger, but it's also microscopically large, right? So we want to dive deeply and see what we can do to support our cellular health through the hormonal signaling. That way we can start to shift our lives from the inside out, and that will shift. I guarantee it. Okay. I guarantee your life will become prosperous, and you will begin to enjoy flow in your life when your cells can receive the message from hormones. So hormones are like your messengers. They are hundreds of hormones we produce in our bodies. They're swimming through your entire water body that you are, because you're at the molecular level, you're 99% water, right? You're fluid. So you're this ocean water. And within that ocean water, you are full of these messengers, and they are basically your hormones. And so hormones are trying to send signals to your cells, like emails getting sent. But maybe your inbox is too full, or your maybe inbox is just not receiving the right message because the message that came in didn't go to the right email address, or maybe it went to the spam folder, and so on and so forth. So unfortunately, a lot of us are struggling with the hormone issues. And I will say one more thing about the hormones, and I don't mean to disrespect male bodies, but I want to focus a little bit more towards female bodies for this call. It's because 80% of hormonal challenges and symptoms that doctors receive, or the ones that I work with, they are from female bodies. Women have the harder time with the hormones because female hormones go through stages in our lives, right? So much more than men. So we are struggling with it more. But this is the unfortunate side of this thing, is that the 80% of the studies out there are based on male hormones, male bodies.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. So I want to just identify straight up that the women's bodies, female bodies, are not male bodies malfunctioning. Okay. That's not what this is. Female bodies are not minus, testicles and penis. Okay. That's not what the women bodies are. So number one, let's understand that we as female bodies, we really need to understand how this works and why we need to attend to this and why we need to support our own endogenous hormones, but also the cells as we go through maturity on this earthly realm. And once you can get that flow going, then so many things will start to flow. Not just your brain will work better and your moods will stabilize and so on and so forth, but also I guarantee you that your intuitive self will flow much better. You can receive messages, channeling, different frequencies. You get to start tapping into these things. And you'll be amazed as soon as you begin to support the hormones, what will change in your life. So that's kind of my intro. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. I do want to back up a little bit. Why is all the research going on the male body with hormones when obviously the women create the children and go through this makes no sense. They go through sharp changes with the menstrual cycle. So,
well, I think, it's what's inside of what's outside, but it's what we see in a society too, isn't it?
It is.
The fact is that when you look at the politicians, number of politicians all across the globe, well, 99% of the people are still men, right?
99.9. Yeah, they're female.
Right. And if you
they don't usually like her either, right?
Exactly.
If
you look at medical schools as well, yes, there are women that are, becoming doctors, and they are many female doctors out there too, but it's still dominated by men, right? So that the thinking goes through the male brains first. And also I think the male brains all tend to want to have a particular reason, and then like it may be symptoms, and let's resolve it, and A leads to B and B leads to C, that kind of a linear thinking. But the female bodies don't work like that. We move in and out constantly. We have different phases. We are part of the moon cycles. That's why I have the moon back there supporting me. We are so in tune. Even you might say, I am not in tune anymore, or I'm, postmenopausal, or, I haven't had my period for so many decades. I don't even know how to connect. You're still connecting to it. And the fact that we live on this mother Gaia, another female body, right? So on and so forth. Why is it that's only studied about male bodies? The answer goes to everything, politics to education, to who's educating us, to who's in charge, and who holds the money, and who gets paid more than who, so I think it goes into different layers. So it's what's happening in the society is what's happening in the hormonal studies as well.
Wow. That alone should be an indication that our research and our knowledge is lacking.
Yes.
So,
yes. Exactly. So shall we get started on maybe learning a little bit about?
Absolutely. We need this information, all of the listeners.
Good. So the hormones, like I said, we produce hundreds of hormones. So for instance, like vitamin D is hormone, right? Melatonin is a hormone, and we produce multiple different hormones throughout our bodies. Okay. Like aldosterone that is produced by adrenals. That's a hormone too. But particularly in this talk, I wanted to point out more of a sex hormone. So we're talking estrogen, we're talking progesterone, we're talking about testosterone. So I want this call to be mainly focused on how do we support our hormonal productions, but how do we communicate with our own endogenous hormones better so that we don't go through deteriorations of like not just having hot flashes and all that, but skin deteriorating, hair deteriorating, mood swings, brain starting to shrink, bone density issues, all these things that the women tend to experience perimenopausal, menopause, and postmenopause. Okay, so that's kind of a focus. So importance of hormones, and I'm not going to go through all of it in details, but I just want all of us to understand that this hormones are signaling molecules. Okay, they are sending you emails every day. They're the messengers of your life. So if you're experiencing stagnations in your finance, your relationships, maybe your health, I mean, those are all prosperity, right? They go under the umbrella of prosperity. Then we need to check in with what's going on with the messengers, because maybe they're sending you messages, but you're just not receiving them correctly. Or maybe the message itself is maybe not quite the message that you want to be receiving, and so on. So maybe not a healthy message even. Okay. So, but the major examples of the hormones include sex hormones, which I have already talked about, the estrogen, testosterone, progesterone. That's what I will be mainly focusing on this call. But we do produce other hormones, as you know, about the stress hormones. We produce digestive hormones. So, makes you satiated or makes you want to keep eating, all those things. Insulin levels go up and down. Those are all hormones. And endocrine hormones, so thyroid produces its own hormone that communicates to your brain. Pituitary produces all that. And so there are a lot of different hormones. And then the other hormones are like vitamin D. So vitamin D that you take as a supplement is not a vitamin, but it's a hormone. And serotonin that will help you to sleep better. But the serotonin converts to another hormone and a neurotransmitter called melatonin, and so on and so forth. Oxytocin is very important in terms of female health as well as we get older, because we get less oxytocin as we get older, and then we don't make as much oxytocin either. So having a pet that will hold you, or maybe occasionally get a hug, if it's your birthday, request a hug, those things will be very helpful. But let's pick estrogen, because estrogen is one of the most fascinating, I would say, hormones out there, because in evolutionary terms, it is the oldest hormone. Okay. So the scientists have studied organisms and looked into what kind of hormones they have or they had. They always started with estrogen. So it is the oldest hormone. So I can't help it but to think this universe started with not Adam and Eve, but it started with Eve, right? Eve came first. Yeah. Eve came first and Adam probably came a little later. Okay. So, that's also very important to remember, that I think when we can support female hormones like estrogen and making sure that our estrogen is the highest quality of estrogen we produce, I actually see that the universe can change through that. I also think that the Mother Gaia can heal through all that by us attending to our inner earthly matter of the estrogen, because estrogen is the oldest hormone. And estrogen has more cell receptor sites in this body than any other hormones, meaning you can communicate with estrogen all over your body. Includes your brain, includes your heart, includes your tissues, includes your bones. Estrogen can tap into everywhere inside you. that's just fascinating to me. No other hormones are this communicative with us. That's because estrogen is so important for your inflammation, so anti-inflammatory. It dampens and lowers your inflammation. It protects your brain and regulates your hippocampal volume. What that means is the hippocampus part of the brain, as you probably know, Helena, is that it's so helpful for your memory, but processing traumas. It actually helps to remember kind of like where you come from, where your star systems you came from originally. I think to me, hippocampus is what holds our past lives, as well as what processes your karmic energies as well. That's not scientifically proven, but that's how I feel about it. So hippocampal volume is really part of estrogen's job. If you don't have healthy estrogen, your brain is going to start to shut down. And I think that's why so many women have more Alzheimer's than men. And women struggle with more depression and anxiety than men. And as you probably know from your work, is that women take more antidepressants than men, right?
Yes.
Yeah, if we don't look at estrogen, I think we're just going to be chasing after symptoms, and we'll be just giving people nothing but medications, trying to do something with the symptoms. So I think, clearing out your cells and making sure that the communications between estrogen and the cells are being done, which I will talk about a little bit later, but that becomes a very important part. And estrogen also protects your leaky gut. And women have a lot more gut issues than men. That's one, because we have a lot more receptor sites, in which I will go into what receptor sites means, but receptor sites, which is what receives your estrogen message in your gut for women than men. So women in general, feel more gut feelings. Women in general feel butterflies in our guts. We feel more intuitive messages through the gut than any parts of our organs. That's because women have a lot more receptor sites for estrogen to communicate with in the gut than male bodies. So that's also very, very fascinating, right? And then estrogen helps with mothers, pregnant mothers, and then fetuses. So that's why when women are pregnant and when they're breastfeeding, they do tend to have very high quality estrogen and other hormones that we produce. It's because the body knows it needs protection for the child, the baby, and the mother. And estrogen impacts your pain level. So if you've been needing to take painkillers a lot, we do need to look at what's going on with your sex hormones. Mood swings, depression, anxiety, which I've kind of covered a little bit, cognition, so that the brain volume shrinks as you become older, but also when you don't have adequate estrogen communicating with your cells, gut issues, and motivation. So I work with a lot of women. My age group that I work with are 50 to the oldest client that I have, it is 87 right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's the niche that I work with. And so it's all about hormones with them, right? And a lot of them will say to me, I used to have motivation. I used to have creativity. I used to be so interested in doing things, and I just can't do it. I'm so tired. That could mean that their adrenals are exhausted, or maybe blood sugar is dysregulated. But also we need to look at what's going on with the estrogen. Okay. And the next, so I work with images, right? Being a health intuitive and also being very, very intuitive as a person, outside of even my work, I imagine things a lot. So when I sense an image or when I receive an image, I go and see if I could find an image and I tweak it and create it. So I want you to think of a cell. This is the cell, but you can kind of see here cell. And then these guys are the mitochondria, right? And you can see these little like things are sticking up. Okay. Mm-hmm. They can be the little villi, meaning
antennas.
Yeah, but these are the little antennas that we're going to be spending some time, right? So antennas are maybe think of it as your email inboxes. These are the guys that are waiting to receive messages from your hormones. So let's go to the next. And this is at the cell, outer cell level. Okay, so just imagine I microscopically looked at the cell level where those little antennas are. So these little things are the antennas. These are what called receptor sites. And think of them almost like a tuning fork. So, you are all about the sounds and a quantum sound healing. So you can relate to this. Is that think of these as a little different tuning forks all over your one single cell. Okay. One single cell. But the tuning fork is wanting to tune in with these little binding molecules. Okay. Binding molecules are signaling molecules, and they're sometimes called ligands. You don't need to know all those, biology terms or anything like that. But these receptor molecules, okay, signaling molecules, could be nitric oxide. It could be nutrients you took for your, from your food. It could be medications you're taking, essential oils. You did CBD oil. You did maybe supplements, but also these include hormones. So hormones are swimming through the water body that you are, and they're looking for the right tuning forks. So the vibration frequencies have to match. And when the frequencies match, they will dock, they will come in and connect. Okay. But what's been going on with all of us, and then I'm going to actually just show you some of the images that came to my mind before I tell you a little bit further, is that think of these satellite dishes and satellites, right? That's out in the space. Think of these as the messengers. These are the hormones. Hormones trying to send a signal to the earth. Okay. And this is the outer membrane of the cell where the receptor sites are. But the receptor sites are having a hard time receiving that message because this atmospheric layer might be dirty, or it might be crusted over. It might have a layer of toxicity around it. So you can kind of start to imagine that's what's happening to your cells. And longer we live on this earth, that the more crusted over we get. That's just biology, okay? It's nothing against aging. It's just aging that biologically we go through creates toxic accumulations from heavy metals, could be plastics, it could be, different frequencies you picked up, traumas, karmic looping. I mean, all those things can really kind of create a layer on your cell, which is your earth, really, individual earth. So you have trillions of different earths inside you. You don't just have one earth, okay, in a way. Okay, so I think of receptor sites, happy receptor sites are going to have a smile, and then going to be shining and saying hello to the rest of the body. Yeah. And then sending these signals and say, give me the flow, give me prosperity, give me health. And they're going to be communicating. And then when they communicate, they actually light up like this. Your cells literally light up. When they dock to the right spot, the hormones will light up. And then they can communicate at the surface level of the satellite dish, but they will also dance themselves 7 wiggle lines. I just want you to know they wiggle 7 times. Isn't that cool? 7 chakras, 7 layers of who you are. They wiggle, 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 and they make their information known to the inside the nucleus. Okay. So this is just to show that if you have a clean receptor sites, hormones can communicate and get into the cell. But if it's clogged up, and then it's got rustiness and then toxicity on there, then no amount of bioidentical hormone therapy or no amount of hormone therapy you've done, or even supplements, or even good foods can communicate to the cell. The point is that we have to communicate to the cell, right? But a lot of us are clogged up. And when you're clogged up at the cellular level, your life will feel clogged up also. And it's very difficult to have the prosperity move through you. Okay. So these are just some of the, examples that I came up with, like what causes receptor sites to dysfunction. We'll talk about that. the receptor sites can break off. They can get rusty. They can get crusted over, so on and so forth. And so this seems like a long list, but I will keep this screen up so that, those of you that want to take screenshots and things like that can take it. But receptor sites can have saboteurs. Saboteurs will come in, and saboteurs can be, it's not in here in this list, but it could be some of your archetypes, saboteur archetypes. It could be the child that felt like didn't receive the nourishment, and that could become a saboteur too. Fear can be a saboteur too. So, let's just look at this from a biological standpoint right now, but pollutants, right? Pollution's everywhere. If we're not regularly detoxing and cleansing our bodies, at least at minimum 2 times per year, which I recommend we all do after the equinox at spring and after the equinox after the fall. Right at the fall equinox, we really need to be doing liver detox, liver cleanse, some kind of a focused cleanse. So the pollutions, heavy metals, which, I know you're familiar with a lot of this, that mercury, lead, arsenic, aluminum, you and I have talked about aluminum a lot. Aluminum sneaks in a lot because it's through the cosmetic stuff you're using, antiperspirants. It could be toothpaste, but it could be aluminum pans you're using. Aluminum is now used in the municipal water to, lower the algae growth and different, parasitic stuff to grow. They will put aluminum to kill these things. So we're actually consuming a lot more aluminum than ever before. Anti-caking stuff like baking soda, table salt. And of course, we can't leave out vaccines. If you do consume a lot of PPIs, which is the proton pump inhibitors, which is something that will lower your acid productions in your stomach. So acid suppressants like Tums, those are coated with aluminum. A lot of medications are coated with aluminum. ADHD medications coated in aluminum. So the list goes on, right? So you really need to be paying attention to some of that. And chronic inflammation, COVID, oxidative stress, so stress in general, too much sugar, too much eating sugary stuff, that's going to definitely impact your receptor size. So it can't receive the ligand. Ligand, remember, it's the molecules, which is the nutrients, hormones, all that. And also, I can't leave out the EMFs, right? And also moldy places you live, or fungus overgrowth, or yeast and fungal overgrowth inside your gut. And next thing I wanted to mention is called EDCs. EDCs are the endocrine disrupting compounds. Endocrine disrupting compounds are everywhere. And what they are is basically all these chemicals we have, all these chemicals.
Oh, ouch.
I know. And, I have to say, no amount of positive thinking, positive affirmations, no amount of basically long hours of meditation, going to retreats and speaking to your guides and angels and spirits. I'm not saying don't do any of those things. Please do those things, but they are not going to eliminate this toxic stuff that we're consuming. I don't want to stir up more fear into our lives, so that I'm not going to read these things off to you, but you can imagine how toxic the world has become. And it says 200 plus chemicals in blood at birth, but it's actually closer to 300 now.
Whoa.
Yeah. So mothers really need to take some time and detox before they even try to get pregnant. I work with a lot of women who cannot get pregnant, or they're trying to get pregnant again. And I always put them through about a month-long liver and gallbladder cleanse before they even think about getting pregnant, because we really don't want to pass down these toxic world elements to them, to the next generation, right? So And don't get, I'm just warning you, don't get overwhelmed, because there are a lot of things you can do. But heavy metals and biologically, we produce a lot of toxins inside our bodies too. That's why eating well is important. Mycotoxins are something that your fungus and yeast produce, and even parasites as well, but they release their own toxins into the body, into your cells. And then you also have the radiation and all that, and traumatic injuries, and scar tissues will hold a lot of toxicity in our bodies too. If you've been through chemotherapy or radiations, as you know, that's a lot of chemicals that you still have inside your body as well, along with your traumatic experience of going through those, treatments and things like that too. And, we can't just ignore the psychological stress that comes with it too. But the body does not distinguish stress. Okay. Body will not distinguish and say, oh, this is a chemical stress. Oh, this is a biologically produced stress. Oh, this is a psychological stress, and this is this is a physical stress. It doesn't. Body will just say this is stress. Okay. Stress is a stress is a stress. And that's also very important when you're doing a lot of trauma work, because I work with a lot of clients who are doing a ton of trauma work, but they're not doing enough physical detox while they're doing the trauma work. So they're stirring up all these emotions, and that psychological emotions will become a stress to your body. Then your body will have to decide to clear that out. Also, in addition to other chemicals and toxicity and medications and everything else that's coming into our bodies. I hope that makes sense, Helena. Does that make sense, like what I'm saying?
Totally, because what people need to grasp is that these elements in our universe are equally disruptive to emotional trauma, perhaps even more. And we may be, just to add a little spice to it, we may be putting too much focus on the emotional if we're not dealing with the biological and the physical. And we're living in such a toxic reality with the increased radiation. I did have a question when you say forever chemicals, because that was one thing.
I didn't mention the forever chemicals. Sorry about that. Yeah. So forever chemicals are like heavy metals, right? Heavy metals, life of mercury, I think it's like thousands of years at this point. So it's really hard to detox that. But forever chemicals include plastics.
Okay. Yes.
Ocean is full of plastics now. The earthy matter is also full of plastics. So we do have forever chemicals inside us, always. Yeah. And, forever chemicals were sprayed a lot in your generations and my generation. So lead can be a forever chemicals. It could be, what's the thing that the people used to spray in the 1950s? I can't remember, but they used to spray all over the fields and things like that too. Forever chemicals were used in the war in Vietnam War as well. So all those things are, just because you stopped using them does not mean that they're not in your system. Mm-hmm. So what do we do with the forever chemicals is that you have to do what you can to lower the stressors that come from other things also. You can detox your forever chemicals. Yes, you can. But you have to stop using these things, right? So the number one thing you want to do is stop using plastic bottled products. So stop drinking water out of plastics, stop purchasing things that come in like saran wrapped things, or, if you're going to go out to eat and if they're going to put doggy bags together, don't have them put it in a plastic containers. I mean, those are the things that you need to just lower the dose, because the poison is in the dose, right? Mm. So we can't go out there and fear life, because life has these toxic things. There's not much we can do on the individual level except to do what you can to purchase things that are a little bit better for your health. Maybe always choose organic. You support the companies that are producing organic produce and things like that. I mean, those are the things you can do, but what you need to focus on is how do I lower the dose of these assaults, right? Yeah, so that's coming back to the emotional side. I work with a lot of clients who have just overwhelmed themselves in the first 3-4 months of the year with so much trauma work that their bodies are just shutting down. And what I have been recommending to all of us is that if you're going to do a trauma emotional work, or the emotional clearing kind of a work, I want you to know that the something has to clear that emotions that you stirred up inside you. And that's liver's job. That's your kidney's job. That's your lymphatic system's job. That's your lungs' job. That's your skin's job. You don't just clear your emotions into ether. Your emotions live inside your physical body, and the emotions must be worked and detoxed through the physical body. And I think that's the equation that is missing in a lot of these emotional work, is that we're stirring it up and we're addressing it, we're revisiting. And in some cases, we're re-traumatizing ourselves by revisiting in some cases. But by doing so, think of it as like you're creating dust inside your apartment. And then you're calling that as cleaning. No, after you stir up the dust, you need to go in there. You got to go in there with the dustpan and scoop that out, and you have to discard that. That's the cleansing part. That is the receptor sites cleaning. That's what you have to do. Yeah. So I hope that answered.
Yes. No, that's very important, actually. And even the excess, to do emotional clearing excessively when you're not balanced biologically is going to create more avenues in your brain, which could be quite disruptive, actually. And so that's a fascinating. I've seen it actually. What you're talking about, Masami, where actually people become more dysfunctional.
Yes,
and the plastics can create a lot of depression.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
It's hard to avoid them in the U.S. I hate to say it.
It is. I mean, it's all across the globe now, unfortunately. So you just really need to, it's really difficult because when you shop anywhere, everything comes in plastic. So one thing you can do is don't prolong the produce or products in the plastic any longer than it needs to be. So when you come home, you empty the items out of the plastics and put it in a glass jar. And maybe, if you need to freeze the items, you put it in a freezer with the glass jar. Or if you go and buy certain things, let's say you went and bought pumpkin seeds or something like that, they will always come in a plastic bag. So then you come home and you put it in a glass mason jars. It does take a little extra step, yes, but you're probably not going to eat the whole bag of pumpkin seeds in one sitting, hopefully not. So then the duration of the time that you keep that in your home, at least it's stored in the glass and not continue to have that being exposed to the plastics, because plastic is perpetually releasing these forever chemicals into the foods. Okay. Yeah. So especially something like oils are key. Okay. So when you purchase olive oil, sesame oil, get avocado oil, whatever, you want to always buy the oils that come in glass, no exceptions. Even you have to pay extra. You do not buy fats and oils that come in plastics, because fats will always absorb these forever chemicals inside. And that's why a lot of women and men are having a hard time with weight loss issues. Okay. It's called weight loss resistance, because fat cells will hold on to these chemicals, especially forever chemicals are stored in your fat cells. So you want to make sure that the fats you eat, the oils you eat, because I'm a huge fan of fats. We need to have good fats. But the fats need to be stored in more like a glass jars. Okay.
Excellent. And what about when you go out and buy your salads and they put it into plastic containers? And
So, yeah, so I no longer am a fan of buying those salads that come in those tubs.
yeah,
I actually do buy just romaine and things, and I come home and wash the romaine and just wash the whole thing, right? But it's the same thing, right? If you do get those in the plastic tubs, you want to get a couple of large glass jars, and not jars, but the tubs, and then transport them into something else, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So, but fats are the key. Fats should never come in the plastic jars.
Okay, good, very good to know. Even like ghee, for example, ghee is usually
Yes.
you'll have the option of now. There's a distinction between PVC and plastic, which I would like to make. That PVC is more similar in its chemical compounds to glass, almost identical, actually. So, do you think there's as much bleed through?
Oh
with-
no. Yeah,
Okay.
not with the glass. No.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Because our water, our structured water, we've been using PVC because usually when you use, it's very difficult to ship in glass. If you're a large company, maybe you can handle that. But
Yeah.
so this is in order to put it in simple language so that we don't get as many disruptive signals that are throwing us out of balance, and that we learn to interpret it.
You got it. It's the poison is in the dose, right?
Yes.
Dose creates the poison. So that's what you're working with. We're not going to be able to stop the entire world from doing this, because the entire world is doing this, right? But you have a control over the dose side of it. And also, even though you work on it, like I'm so careful about all these things. However, I noticed I needed this spring cleanse that I just finished doing. I actually stretched it out to 60 days on a very gentle cleanse I did. I was surprised at the level of accumulation of a lot of these toxins, including psychological toxins that I had been accumulating since last fall. So I think we no longer live on the earth where you could just live however way you wanted up to this point, because that's not going to work. But also, I don't think you can live on this earth without doing some kind of a scheduled cleanse at least 2 times per year. So in addition to doing glass jars and not buying, conventional foods and things like that, and buy always organic and so on and so forth, you want to do that. But I think setting aside some gentle time where you get to have some reflective time, where you get to do a cleanse with your liver and gallbladder. And as you know, liver holds so much of our ancestral energies and emotions, especially female energies. So, female lineages really come through the liver. So it's very important we do take some time for liver cleanse. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'll just give you step 1. Step 1 is to cleanse and detox the clogged receptor sites, right? So those are the satellite dishes we need to clean. And you want to do it in a gently and effectively and safe way, right? To optimize your receptor sites, receptor functions. So this is very important that receptor sites are cleaned before we start to go and address hormones. Okay. Because your body may actually, and then this is true with most of my clients, is that most of my clients, and including myself, we're actually still producing hormones all throughout our lives, all of us. But if the receptor side, so the receiving end of it, is too full. So think of like I've called somebody recently, and this person's answering machine, the cell phone answering machine, okay, or they don't call it answering machine, voice message. The voice message was full.
Your mailbox is full.
Right. So I could not send this person, leave a message, right? That's kind of what's happening with the receptor sites. It's full. It's full of things, full of gunk. So if you don't delete the voice messaging system, then no amount of message you try to send it isn't going to get in there. So please know that don't chase after how do I give myself more hormones. But it's number 1 step is how do I clean the receptor sites So the endogenous hormones you already produce can readily communicate with your receptor sites. That's the number one. And I think that's the number one step that most hormonal doctors and other physicians have not addressed. And they're addressing maybe just the hormones, they're doing a blood test and so on and so forth. And this quote is very important, I think. It comes from Dr. Lindsay Berkson, and then she has written about 22 books on hormones, and I have been studying.
Whoa.
Yeah, she's
a lot of books on hormones.
It is, and she is just a fascinating human being who's she is actually 74 years old, and she looks like she could pass for higher, like maybe late 40s, early 50s. Wow. Unbelievably amazing health because she's been addressing hormones. But she says here the testing hormone levels, whether it be in blood, saliva, or urine, doesn't matter. Okay, that's very important. Testing hormone levels, whether it be in blood, saliva, or urine, doesn't matter unless the receptor function is working. Without clean receptor sites, hormones can't do their job. And it's worth repeating here. What are hormones doing? What's the hormone's job? Well, hormones' job is to communicate. They're the messengers of your life. So if your life feels stuck, if your life feels stagnant, if your life has not been able to open up the creative potential and your intuitive sense is starting to shut down, because I work with a lot of women that will say, I used to be able to communicate so much more. I could channel things, I could feel things, and they will say, I can't. Then I have to look at the messengers, which one of them is the hormones. Okay. And then these are a couple of things. I'll leave this up as well, but what cleanses your cell receptor sites are niacin is really, really important. It's one of the B vitamins. B6, I talk about it constantly. You have to have B6. And the calcium D glucarate is a fabulous supplement that you can take on the side too, but it helps with estrogen cleanup. It cleans out the kind of the forever chemicals out of your body. It takes the xenoestrogen out of you. Iodine is so missing in the Western diet. You know, please remember, everyone, that the Japanese diet is 600 times more iodine than American diet. You know, standard American diet stands for SAD, right? Standard American diet, SAD. Okay.
Starving.
Starvation also. It's a malnutrition, really, you know,
yes.
malnourishment. We just put calories into us and we're not being nourished. So, and then you can see that some of these things like milk thistle and other things are really important for cleaning your liver. So I will actually just kind of, maybe I will stop sharing for a moment here because I don't want it to become too lectury, but you can kind of see those are very helpful. And, what I can show you quickly, if you don't mind, Helena, I know you have questions. I want you to ask me questions, but I want to show everyone the supplements that the Dr. Lindsay Berkson came up with last September. So it was in 2022, September.
Okay.
She had been studying about hormones since the 1980s. And she's a scholar and she's a physician. Amazing. So she's been working on trying to formulate something that we can take. And this is not just for women. This is for men. My husband takes it. It's changed my life completely. Like I don't normally say this. And you know, in all these interviews I've done, I don't show supplements much because I'm not here to like say, buy this, buy that. But I can no longer sit back and not share this because this has changed my life. I'm 51 years old now, so I am in menopause. And so I need to be taking care of my hormones differently than how I used to take care of myself in my 30s and 40s. So I started taking these supplements pretty religiously. And so I want to show you what they are. And then if you go to my website, I have a lot of interesting information around hormone things. So you can watch videos or learn it. But this is masamicovey.com, and you just scroll down. Okay. And if you get to here, where is it? Here. Okay. So you have to scroll down a little bit, everyone. It says support your natural hormone production. So this is not, because I'm not a doctor. Okay. I'm not an MD or ND. So I cannot prescribe you hormone therapy. Okay. However, what these supplements do is that these supplements will go and clean out the receptor sites. So your tuning forks can be ringing and spinning and, making its own vibrations so that the hormones can come in and have a marriage, right? Nice match. That's what we're doing. It's like a match.com inside the cells, right? That's what we're doing. So the receptor detox comes with all those things that I've listed in that screen before this one. That's all in there and more. So, and if you order it through this page, I'm actually giving everybody that orders this 10% off, but also, and free shipping. And also I'm giving them the PDF that I created. And I go into details about why we need to clean the receptor site. Some of the information will be the repeat of what I've shared here, but also gives you an idea of why we need to take care of these little antennas first, why we need to clear the voice message first, so that we can hear the voice. That's what we need to do. But I think a lot of the spiritual communities have focused so much on the voice itself and frequencies outside of us too much, and not enough on the receptor sites level, the receiving end of it. So the receptor detox will clean that out. And the hormone balance and protect has different things in there. They will have a zinc in it, has some B in it too, but has a different formulation to now support the production of your hormones so that what you produce in your body is the highest quality of hormones you can produce. Okay. So I just wanted to share that because you'll get the PDF, and this one is, and then in the PDF, I actually make recommendations to how to take it, when to take them. This is just a general recommendations. And I tend to make recommendations for people who tends to be a little more sensitive in their biology. So I'll stop sharing, but in their physiology, in their constitution, they tend to be a little bit on the sensitive side. Okay. So my dosing recommendation is a little bit less than what she would recommend. But if I were to take it at the level that Dr. Berkson, who formulated these two supplements, it'd just be too much for my body, and tends to be too much for 80% of people who I work with, because they tend to be vibrating at the frequencies that are a little bit more heightened. And so they don't need as much of the dose to make a difference. So those are the two, main supplements that I would recommend for anybody that is thinking about starting a bioidentical hormone therapy, or they're thinking about doing the hormone therapy itself. What these two supplements do is that they prepare your receiving end. And I find that very interesting, Helena. I want to hear about this with you, is that I feel like we're all having a hard time receiving, receiving the frequencies, receiving the message. You're an exception. Okay, Helena.
An exception.
You receive
with a lot of technology. I'm contemplating what you're saying. I would definitely agree that, but see, this is a really different approach to why that might be happening, which I love. You just flipped the switch, which is what the summit is about, flipping every switch. Because the receptor side. So, what's occurring in my brain is that perhaps this is why juice fasting works so well. It starts, because I know a lot of the juicing we've done did involve cilantro and parsley and celery. And I just realized that it's to scrub out the cells. But I think you pointed out something so extraordinarily brilliant, that we're doing all of this stuff We do the emotional clearing, the trauma clearing. We think it's all emotional trauma. And then we eat all this organic food. But if what's in your body is actually sort of like a house that hasn't been cleaned for however many years you have been in the body, you're going to get clogged up. You're going to get sick and lose your energy. And it is true. Humans, my experience recently, I'm just noticing how much I really believe less is more. So one of the things that people tend to do, especially in the West, is when they have a problem, they oversolve it. They overdo. They buy too many supplements. They're stuffing food in their face or whatever. But this is a profound shift because we need to look at where the energy stopped feeling right. Because there's no way that if you're blocked in this way, that your energy feels or flows right. Now, a big concern, do you feel radiation can also clog up cell receptor sites?
Oh, yeah. So that's, I would put that into the EMFs category.
Okay. That's huge though, then, because the radiation, sort of like consider it that we're in an oven.
Yes. Solar flares. And then even I would say cosmically too, like even going through Mercury retrograde, all those things can definitely impact us, the cell receptor sites as well. So it's all of it. Because the body, like I said, body does not distinguish what's stressing the body. It's just stress. So it's going to do the best it can to kind of manage, but also chooses what's most important to address. Okay. And so this is why, and I just worked with a client this morning and she was very concerned about maybe her skin as she gets older and in her hair. But I had to tell her that the first step is that we have to get you nourished and you have to get your receptor sites to clean out so they can receive the information, because everything is information, whether that is what we're saying here or the foods you eat, the water you drink, frequency wise, everything is information. But the body has to choose. So the information is getting bombarded, right? We are taking in too much. Okay. And we're having a receiving end of the side panic because it's just flooding into our system. And so think of it as like 3 lanes because of the construction, 3 lanes having to come into one single lane. It's a nightmare. We've all been to that kind of construction zones where you're going 75 miles an hour and all of a sudden you have to come to, stop. And then you have to allow each others to come in. And it's kind of, that's what the receptor sites are dealing with. It's too much. And so coming back to the supplements can become too much too, if your receptor sites can't do anything with it. So what has changed for me dramatically since September of last year, because when she formulated this, I was probably one of the first people to start taking this. And, I said to my husband, take these. Don't ask me questions. You just have to do them. So he started doing them. And then
sounds like a good relationship.
Yeah. And then now
he's intuitive. He's done. He gets to receive.
Yes, he believes me completely. So what happened was that I started to gradually require less and less supplements.
Oh. Interesting.
Yeah, because they are receiving so much more readily and it's fully communicating with my cells and the nucleus that my DNA, I can honestly feel my DNA cleaning things out, DNA starting to express its original blueprint, its original expression of my soul contract. It's really fascinating. And that's why the receptor detox is probably the most important one out of those 2. I do recommend both of them being taken together, but you may want to start with the receptor detox for 2 weeks first, prior to introducing the hormone support and protect, the second bottle, just so that it gives your body about 2 weeks to clear things out. Then you can start to add the nutrients back in. So that might be a nice way to take it. But Yeah. So the receiving side, if we can't receive at the cell level, I don't know how we can receive larger frequencies at the level that it will shift your life. Right.
But this is why this is very significant for this summit, and that since we are advocating frequencies, the frequencies are picked up by the antennas of the cells, the trillions of antennas, and if that's blocked, there can be a lessened impact of that frequency, and there can also it can also kind of distort the frequency. I'm just getting that intuitively, that if someone's really toxic and the receptor cells are, let's call it gummed up, they're all, then the frequency is actually not penetrating in the same way. And since we want to begin to understand that we can accommodate and attract and receive and imbibe these new frequencies that are for our evolution. So this is very, very important. And I'd never made this connection between the cell receptor sites, although I've spoken about, like Bruce Lipton also says that he says that no two people receive frequency the same way because of the receptor cells. So what you're saying is totally in alignment. And I think what you're saying is also clean up your act physically as much as you can in an extremely toxic world before you overindulge in something that could be actually distressing. Like when Gurmai sent in the NASA scientist, and we saw that, going through the trauma therapy, it actually ingrains the pattern, the memory more deeply in the brain. So it's actually more disturbing. Actually, talk therapy is more disturbing.
Yes.
It's because you really don't want to keep visiting that. You want to move on.
Right. Exactly. Oh, I love what you're bringing in.
So the trillions of cells that is us, physical body, I feel now as though one of the mistakes or the misdirects in the New Age movement, in the golden, is that though there's focus on the body, it's focus on biohacking, performance, not always elimination of what's heavy and dragging you down. And what I want to say is that my experience of interacting with people right now is that there is more confusion, there is more uncertainty, and there's more doubt and self-doubt and lack of trust. And this has to do with the body getting clogged up as well. So this is extremely important, that when you're losing clarity, you want to work on this first.
Yes.
You want to work on the body and the brain first. And then
amen to what you're saying. Mm-hmm.
And depending on age and so on, seeking out, most of us will, because we're we're from wherever, will add all these pills without cleaning the house. So it's kind of like dumping a bunch of stuff in your refrigerator that's filthy and it's going to get contaminated anyway. So,
right. You could be buying the most expensive, organically produced, high quality, high frequency supplements. But if your receptor sites are all clogged up, then it's a waste of money, first of all.
Yes, it twists them up.
Right. And the, messengers cannot do this dance for seven wiggly dances, so then you don't connect your, 7 chakras either, and, I think the analogy that I use often with my clients is that before you begin to decorate your house with a bunch of artwork and rugs and furnitures and things like that, let's build the foundation first, right?
Let's build a solid foundation so you can live a long time in a healthy body. I love that. Right. So I think you've turned things, you've actually added a perspective that's extremely essential. I want to thank you for that. And it's a direction that we need to understand, especially with the advent of 5, 6, and 7G, because do you see that as clogging up the receptor sites
So,
Mhm.
yeah, you and I have had this conversation before, and I might be going a little bit, I might not say against, but here's the thing. So I'm going to talk from my own perspectives.
Yes.
I was very, very concerned about the 5G, and I still am. Okay. I find those things to be obviously unnatural for our bodies. And I don't want to live in a place that has nothing but cell towers and 5Gs and, stronger frequencies of the EMFs. Okay. And I will not sleep with the routers in my bedroom, or we always turn off the Wi-Fi and so on and so forth. So I will do those things. But what started to happen to me is that as I began to clear my receptor sites and I started to do these cleanses a little bit more consciously. So it's not just like a weekend warrior and just do the cleanse on the weekends, but it's more steady on the physical level, emotional level, psychological level, in the home level, your home sanctuary kind of thing, to clear the closets and things like that. So I will take some time to do the cleanse. What started to happen to me is that I am not as bogged down or bothered by 5G. And I know that I'm going against a lot of people who are talking about get these equipments and do this for your house and do that for your homes and so on and so forth. And I agree to a certain degree, but what I'm noticing in my body, and I'm starting to notice with some of my clients, is that when we can go in there, start to clean out the antennas inside us, trillions of them that's here, these frequencies that can be harmful to our bodies are no longer having the grip that they used to have on me. So is it that I'm not promoting 5G? No. But I'm also saying that 5G is here to stay. Okay. Unless you remove yourself and live in the middle of nowhere, that could be an option for some, but I don't think it's an option for everyone. Then I recommend that instead of stirring up more fear around that, because fear will also clog up your receptor sites, I would like for all of you to do things to clear the receptor sites so that whatever that comes to your body as information will not be harmful to you, but the receptor sites can say, oh, I'm not going to let this thing dock into my thing because this frequency doesn't match with me. Because remember, receptor sites doesn't receive everything and in anything. No, they're looking for a match. This is the match made in heaven that is happening. So they can reject it and say, no, we're not receiving that. So I think you can reject certain frequencies if your cells are cleaner, if your cell membranes are working at the optimal level. So I hope that answers my kind of two opposing, I am not happy that the 5G is taking over this world. No, I'm not. And I'll do what I can to eliminate the assaults. But in the meantime, I'm going to still go and clean my receptor sites as well.
I actually think it's the reason what you're doing is working so well is that it seems as though 5G activates something about heavy metals in the body. So when we can, this is interesting, but when we can reduce the heavy metal level of toxicity, I think it reduces the impact. So if you're a little less toxic, it probably reduces the impact. But who knows? This is
no. There's Dr. Klinghardt has talked about this many times, and it's actually researched that if you sleep right next to the router area, and then if you have mold and fungus in your house, the mold and fungus will actually increase by 700 times or something crazy like that. Okay.
Really?
But we also need to remember that a lot of the yeast and the fungus that we live with, we coexist with yeast and fungus and mold and things like that, right? We have that inside us. They tend to eat heavy metals. Okay? They're like a Pac-Man from heavy metals. Okay. So when you put EMFs and the heavy metal eating organisms like yeast and fungus, they can proliferate, they can grow, right? So that can also increase the more of the consumption of heavy metals is everywhere. We all have them, but that can get accumulated into these organisms' cells also. And when you do cleanse, you say, I'm just going to do candida cleanse. I'm going to do yeast and fungus cleanse. Well, not so fast, everyone, because when you kill these things, they are going to release heavy metals into your body also. Right. So there are stages that you want to take. We don't want to just blindly just do cleanse. You need to make sure that the cleanse is supported step by step of your body. So yes, heavy metals really get stirred up. I think for me, what I sense is that it excites the heavy metals when you have high levels of EMFs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So watch your fish consumption, I guess. Right.
Yeah. Fish is a tough topic, but if you do eat fish, yes, you want to avoid large fish, but also you want to maybe add a little selenium after you've had sushi or something like that, because selenium can offset the impact of the mercury.
Oh, well, thank you. That's a very good pro tip. Thank you. So
Yes.
in closing, you've shared so generously, and I really appreciate this because this does flip the switch. It does. We have a broader perspective at the moment. Don't just look at the emotions, look at the body. I love that. Is there anything that you'd like to close with or speak about your beautiful gift?
Oh, so yeah, I've talked so much. Sorry, everybody. I hope you're not.
No, this is no apology. This is really important information. Change your digestive tract.
Start with you. I think the image that might help is that we have trillions and trillions of cells, but we have little guys, but think about all of us lined up on our earth. Okay. Each of us are like antennas too.
Yes.
And we're all receiving the information from everywhere, from the ground up and in heaven and here too, and with each other. Right. So I think it always has to start with you. So how are you as an antenna? And one of the clues when you become clean inside in terms of your antennas, your receptor site starts to operate at the optimal level. You become generous. You become very generous. You don't hold back the thank yous. You don't hold back the things like good job or I'm so happy for you. You stop being jealous of other people's success. So what I'm seeing is that not only we're having a hard time receiving, but we're also having a hard time giving the generosity. That's what I'm seeing all over the place. People are hoarding their gratitudes and they don't want to share thank yous. They want to hold on to their information. And so someone like you is the opposite of that. You're always so giving. You're always showing up for everybody. You give all these free information, including this kind of a summits and these kind of talks. And you're always showing up to be like, I'm just the conduit. I'm channeling, I'm sharing, and I don't need to hold back. That is a clear receptor site. So you are a clear receptor site as a being, and then your individual cells are working so well because your receptor sites are not hoarding, you're not clogged up, because you have a beautiful flow in and out, in and out, in and out. That's a one way to take a look at yourself and say, do I hold back on like thumbs up? Just give a thumbs up. I mean, what's so hard about it? Or email Helena and let her know, hey, I like this interview. Hey, Helena, thank you for doing this for us. Those little thanks will really, really reignite who we are also as presenters and people who are hosting these things, and like people like me that are coming on these calls with our time and our knowledge to share. I think we all need to hear it too. But I think just pay attention. If you start to hoard gratitude, that means your receptor sites are clogged up. then I say you're going to have a hard time creating prosperity in your life.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That is a beautiful perspective. And I want to acknowledge you for the depth of your research and contemplation. So you're sort of rethinking the scenario that's out here in personal development and in the world that we're in today. So thank you. This has really shifted my perspective, and it will shift, I'm sure, thousands of people's perspective, because this is a critical moment to find your truth. And what Masami is saying is that biological toxicity on the level of the cell receptor sites is going to distort your truth as much as the morning news. So I want to thank you for being with us and
Thank you.
sharing this wisdom and research. You are amazing. And my guidance team is very grateful that you shed light on this, because I think we were getting a little stuck in the metaphysical. So thank you.
You're welcome.